So, yeah, I'm recording.
Whoops. You're recording and then not recording and then recording again. All right. Let's do this. I'm going to forget. Viper, what do you want me to call you?
Viper.
I'm going to make sure that I... So what was that?
Mr. Viper? Captain Viper?
Viper, fine.
Just
Man About Tech?
That'll work.
All right. So we'll do Viper.
First of his name.
About Tech.
Here we go.
And
Captain
then
of Team Apple.
your show, do you want it Vipe Nation or One Viper?
My show, though, my podcast is called Vibe Drive.
Vibe Drive. There we go. Thank you. Just want to make sure I get these right.
We make Lori fill out forms before the show because we're like that.
All right. I'm ready. Here we go. Except what's today? The 20th. All right. I swear I've got this. Good afternoon. Today is Friday, March 20th, 2020. And today we're going to talk about the MacBook Air 2020, the iPad Pro 2020, and a whole lot more, because this is the iMore Show. Joining us today on the show, as always, our anxiety healer, Georgia Dow of anxiety-videos.com. Welcome to the show, Georgia. How are you doing today?
I'm really excited to be here. It's like a huge party time. So here we go.
This is party time. Yes. Also with us today, I'm going to go through the list pretty quick, is Renee Ricci of Vector fame. Welcome again to the show, Renee. How are you doing?
Good.
Renee is holding up a special box right now.
I feel like Al from Home Improvement.
Ooh, look at that. He's holding a box. He's got a treat.
And we've got Joe Keller, assistant managing editor of iMore, joining us the show. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me again.
And last but especially important, Viper, that's VYYYPER, the man about tech, the host of Vipe Drive. Welcome to the show, Viper.
Hello, hello. Thank you. How you doing?
It must be really sunny where you're at.
You know, I don't know about sunny, but apparently according to our government officials tomorrow, it's going to be pretty lockdown. So, yeah.
So you're just playing it cool. I got it. Playing it cool.
Lockdown. New York on lockdown. California on lockdown. Yeah.
We're all on. Well, you know, we're practicing social distancing right now. There's 5 of us in the room, but we're nowhere near each other, so we're doing okay.
I have my Apple Watch set to proximity alert. If any of you come too close, it'll go awooga, awooga, awooga. Back up, too close, awooga. And then you'll have to back it up.
Yep. So California just had their order of shelter in place last night, went into effect at midnight last night. I had to go out one last time. Now, I didn't go and hang out anywhere. All I did was I went to my favorite restaurant, which is actually a block from my house, thank goodness. Walked in, ordered some food, walked out. So I was still practicing safe distancing. Even when I ordered the food, I stood away from the counter. So that was my last outing, my last unnecessary outing.
There's going to be a generation of kids who had to grow up listening to the talk about safe distancing from their parents. Did you get the talk yet?
A word that I had never heard of until 3 weeks ago, something like that.
Social distancing.
Yep.
Don't distance and drive.
Yep. All right. So some big things happened earlier this week involving tech, of course. One of them being that Apple, out of the blue, kind of. I mean, I would say there were some people that knew, because I think just in the way that the announcements were made, there were some people that knew, but a lot of us did not know that Apple was going to announce the MacBook Air 2020 and the iPad Pro 2020, along with some fun accessories for the iPad Pro. And it happened at 5 o'clock in the morning, my time. So I woke up in the morning to all this wonderful news, all this exciting news. So Joe, let's start off by having you tell us a little bit about what the MacBook Air is all about. The new MacBook Air. What's the big deal?
So there are a couple of things with the new MacBook Air. We've got processor choice is back. That was missing from the last one. You can now choose between a Core i3, i5, and or i7. But I think for a lot of people, including probably Taika Waititi, the big thing here is the new keyboard, the Magic keyboard that Apple is calling it. It's a scissor switch keyboard, replaces the butterfly switch that was there. I think it's 1 millimeter of travel.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an overall better machine in terms of performance, and now we've got the keyboard that so many of us have been waiting for back on Apple's most popular laptop.
Georgia, how do you
I'm
feel
just
about
really
that?
excited. I'm really excited.
Did you squeal like a child when you saw that announcement?
Like I love my MacBook, my like, it's pretty, but the keyboard, I use it, and I'm so excited that finally we've been asking, like, fix it, get it back, make it beautiful. I want to be able to see in the dark when I'm using the thing and not be like, where's the damn letter? What letters aren't working? I'm typing to people and I'm writing "eef" instead of "beef." I'm like, this is really, really frustrating. And so they've done it. They fixed it. And Renee, what do you have there?
I have my hat turned back, like traditional Canadian unboxing fashion.
Yeah, but you're supposed to have the sunglasses like Viper too. Like you got to.
I can't do everyone. I can't be every YouTuber.
Fair enough.
Georgia.
Fair enough.
I should have 3 red cameras on me and then be doing it outside like Jonathan Morrison. But I can't do everything.
Can't do everything.
So I'm gonna start unboxing it, and then as you guys talk, I will try to make very loud plastic unwrapping sounds into the microphone.
Because that's always good.
It's satisfying, according to the YouTubes.
Right. And while he does that, Viper, are you excited about the new keyboard? Did you hate the old keyboard? Like, where are you at with this?
The old
I
personally, I have a 2017 MacBook Pro, so I have the old butterfly keyboard. Me personally, I haven't really had any issue with it. But when you have the amount of issues that have been reported over the past 3 or 4 years about this keyboard, it was high time for Apple to do something about it. And I'm just glad to see that they finally took the keyboard complaint seriously. And now we went back to the old scissor switch mechanism. So now we got that in the new MacBook Air. They first unveiled it in the new 16-inch MacBook Pro last year. So I'm excited for a more durable keyboard, definitely. Look at Renee unboxing all that Apple goodness. Woo!
It's rose gold. It's like
that is beautiful.
It's like I accidentally got George's laptop because it's all rose gold.
I do like rose gold. That is my
they call
color.
this gold, but it's rose gold. Like, I don't know why they just.
Yeah,
this is the other one here. We can kind of. I know it's hard to see the difference. It's close. See, I have the rose gold.
I think your lighting is making yours look kind of blue.
I know. You can't really. Oh well. Wait, let me. No, that doesn't help. I'm changing the different.
But you know what you don't have, Georgia? Inverted T arrow keys. Boom. Scissor switches with 1 millimeter of travel and keys that lock out on the top, so you get a more.
Now, what's the push? Tell me what the push on that is, because it is still like that, like less than a millimeter push.
Mm-hmm.
It's clickety clackety delicious.
Ooh, listen to that
I like
sound.
this. I need more squish. I think that might be the only piece that
I didn't hate. They were the only thing I had at the time with the old scissor switches. But when I got the butterfly keys, and I've said this before. Oh, stop yelling at me! I'll open you in a minute.
Siri.
When I got the butterfly keyboards, I loved them because they were so much more stable. And then when I went back to the old, because I had my MacBook Pro at the time, had the old keyboard, my MacBook 12-inch had the new keyboard. They were just all sorts of slippity-sloppity for me. They were just like loosey-goosey. And then as the reliability issues came out, it didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter which keyboard you liked any better or any worse. It didn't matter that it was divisive. It just mattered that people weren't that they were failing on people. So now they've got Magic keyboards, which uses the old scissor switch, but has a new dome design and keycaps that lock out at the top. So they give you just a little bit more resistance. So there's more movement, more resistance. And I kind of feel like it's the best of both keyboard worlds. Right,
it's
Lauren?
not wiggly, right? The keys aren't wiggly.
No, like you don't slip off them. Like the old ones, they were like the keys would be moving in multiple dimensions at once. It was almost like standing on like a little surfing board when you were typing. The butterfly keys were absolutely flat. The whole key would move up and down every time. This has that stability, but the old reliability.
And it has a larger trackpad too, right?
They keep making it larger and larger. I don't know. There's going to be so the one thing I'm super disappointed about, well, there's a couple things I'm super disappointed about, but they all revolve around the top part, not the bottom part. The trackpad is still pretty cool. It didn't get the MacBook 16 screen redesign. So like it's still 13.3 inches. It's not 14 inches. And I would have liked them to shave some of the bezel off because a lot of competing laptops have gotten closer to edge. And then it still has the 720p potato cam. And especially now that we're all working from home and on conference calls, the company that makes the iPhone camera, you can't ship the potato cam.
All right, we got to talk about this real quick because this boggles my mind. Apple expects us to pay all these thousands of dollars for these computers, and they're giving us this potato cam. So what is this? Why can't we get a better webcam for these MacBooks? I don't get this.
It's the thin, the depth is the enemy of cameras, and they're making these lids so thin. And I'm just like, put a bump in. Nobody will notice on the inside. Just have a little subtle bump, or make the lid just a little bit thicker. Fill it with more photons.
Or a bump on the outside, like the way they do on the iPhone. We got used to it.
People would call it a nipple, and they would never let us forget it. Just a little pink bump on the top of your MacBook.
Oh boy, that just got worse.
I don't think they could get away with that.
So Viper, what do you think that Apple should do about putting a new camera in? What do you think would be a good solution? Inside, outside, a long one, a thicker Mac? Which would work?
I mean, we've seen that Apple has kind of done away with the form over function argument over the past year or so with the new iPhones and things like that, and even with the 16-inch MacBook Pro, they were able to make it a little bit bigger to improve their thermals and things like that. So they're not above doing it. So I don't think it's such a big ask to want at least a 1080p camera in the damn MacBook. You know, I mean, come on now. Like, what are we waiting for here? Do you need an invitation, Tim Cook? Do you need an invitation? Here it is. Put it in there, baby. Put it in there.
He was waiting. He was literally waiting on you to
Renee, how many ports does that have? How many? It's all USB-C. And how many?
It's got 2 ports, which is typical for the original MacBook Air only had 1 port. Like it had the Millennium Falcon dock lowering ports, and then the 2010 or 2011, I forget when the redesign came out, got 2 ports. My only gripe with the ports, and I'm sounding like I'm just a big spoiled baby at this point, but whatever, is that they're both on the same side. And one of the things I love about USB-C is the ability to plug in on a MacBook Pro that has them on both sides, either side. Like if you're at a coffee shop or a cramped space or at a table and it's just more convenient, you can plug in on either side. And I know it's engineeringly harder because then you have to run 2 USB-C buses and it takes more architecture, more power, but it would be a nice to have if the USB-C ports were on both sides.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a reason why they have to put them both on the same side, but I agree. I like the idea of them being one on each side. You just never know where you're going to need to plug your stuff in. And then if you have to plug into power and plug into, a USB-C hub, you got so much happening all on one side, and it's just not as fluid or freeing.
Rowan's trying to ask me if Wi-Fi 6 speeds will increase AirDrop. So this is not Wi-Fi 6. This is 802.11 AC, like the MacBook Pro. I think Apple is waiting on Intel's embedded Wi-Fi 6 chips, and this is Ice Lake because it's got the Iris Plus graphics. It's not Comet Lake, which lacks those graphics. And it's finally Intel's 10 nanometer process, which they've been, I think they're like 3 or 4 years late on delivering, which means that the dies are smaller. They've been shrunk down, so they're more efficient. You can get more power at lower heat. And this is the first time we've had not just a dual core option, and these are Core M chips. They're still the same chips as the 12-inch MacBook. Intel rebranded them to have the same name as the big boy chips. They are not. They're the little kitty chips. And we're not fooled. None of us are fooled by this. But so you can get the i3, which is which is fine. You can get the i5, which is like mid-range, but you can also get an i7 now. So you can get a MacBook Air with a quad-core 10 nanometer processor finally. And it's not going to be a MacBook Pro. But as someone who lived off the old MacBook Air, I used to do video. Like it wasn't fast video, but I'd be at CES and I'd be able to crank out a few videos here and there So it means like it's better for a wider range of casual computing. I wouldn't say it's great for pro computing, but for people who just like they're on vacation, they want to do like their home videos, or they need to put together something that's a little bit more intensive. I'm not embarrassed by Intel silicon anymore. It's still nothing like the iPad silicon, like the Apple A series of the iPad. That still creams it, which means that Air MacBook can't come fast enough for me. But it's no longer embarrassing.
I was about to say, Renee, don't we? Wasn't there a report like a few weeks ago that I think we're expecting ARM architecture on MacBooks maybe next year?
They always say that. They're always coming and never
Was that
arriving.
Jing-Ming Kuo? Because that's not going to fly for me.
Oh, she did it again. Whew.
Yeah, Viper lobbed that up, and Lori's like, whoosh, boom.
No, but yeah, I think Apple, I think it's clear that they're working on their architecture, and it's just a matter of time. But Renee, I think you had said because of the new contract that they signed that it's probably not going to be this soon. Do you think it's coming?
So I think that's Qualcomm with the 5G.
I keep doing that.
No, that's fine. ARM, they're an ARM licensee, so they can do whatever they want. But they probably have a contract with Intel that gives them preferential pricing. It's probably why they haven't gone to AMD. A lot of people would love it if Apple put AMD chips. AMD has been kicking Intel's butt on desktop chips for a while. Now they're starting to do it on laptop chips. There's probably a lot of people who want that to happen. But Apple is really enmeshed with Intel. They don't buy off the shelf. They work with them. They make sure that everything like power nap and all that is working well. They get custom boards, custom sizes, all these things. And they probably get preferential treatment for buying, so many computers. So it's like easy for us to say, switch to AMD. No, switch back to Intel. No, switch to AMD. No, go to ARM now. Okay, now AMD. But for them, it's like moving a battleship every time they want to do one of these.
So we saw some benchmarks already this morning on the speed, and it appears that it's about 75% faster. Is that the i3 that's picking up speed like that? So my question is, so obviously they have the three different options, the i3, the i5, and the i7, and that allows you to decide how much power you want, but it also helps you decide how much money you want to spend. Yes. So the i3, I think, is perfect for students, for business people who don't need to run heavy programs when they're just going to do a lot of, writing articles or writing papers or something like that. That's perfect. The i3, the $1,000, the $999 price tag, right?
It's back, baby.
Yeah, which Apple listened to what we wanted. We wanted $1,000 one. They gave it to us, but that also meant that the chip is the lower value or lower level. So does the i3 chip, because it's the Ice Lake, is it actually faster than the older MacBook Air's i5 chip?
Yeah, so there were no different chips last time because I believe like the differences were not very significant. So Apple didn't bother with them. Like if you got the i7 before, it was a piddling difference in performance. This time it's significant because it's quad core. So I think that's why they're doing it. They're doing the i3, which I always suspect like Intel has the bad i5s coming off the assembly line. They clip a wire and they call those the i3s. Can't prove it. Don't sue me. But that's my guess. And those are going to be fine. I mean, they're probably going to be similar to what last year's was, but the graphics are better. So overall, it should be a slight improvement. Not last year, 2018. Everyone is being very pedantic about that. And I know Joe's going to shake his head at me if I say last year's, and it was really 2018.
Well, there was a refresh last year.
That's true. No, that's fair. But the i7 with quad core is going to be a good performance boost. And the benchmarks are probably, I didn't check this one, but I think all the review units have been i5.
Oh, okay. Okay. So the testing that's going on is definitely going to be like i5 to i5 comparisons, not i3 to i5.
i5 too.
Yeah. Well, that one is, if I'm not mistaken, that one is $1,099, which is the same price as the old one, which has the same core as the last year's model or 2018 model. Or last year's model.
Say that it's less expensive than a Galaxy S20 Ultra and has better autofocus.
Well, I don't know. I think the S20 probably has better autofocus.
Oh God, the S20 does, not the X20 Ultra.
Yeah. So these are all the big things. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about? The speed, the better graphics, of course, the magic. What's better?
The speakers are better. They have the new spatial audio technology.
Right. Yeah. So I know you haven't
will
been
sound
able.
way better when you play it.
Yeah. I know you haven't had a chance to actually listen to it, listen to this one in real life, but you did get a demo of it. Does it have Dolby Atmos?
Yes, and it has, and if your content doesn't have Atmos, it has Apple's spatial audio. It's also got mics. Apple's not saying studio quality like they do for the 16-inch MacBook Pro and the iPad Pro. They're just saying they're better. So my guess is they're not quite USB quality, but they're a multiple microphone array, so it should be better than previously.
Yeah, I believe, and don't quote me on this one, but I believe that the MacBook Air has 2 microphones and the iPad Pro and MacBook Pro have 5 microphones. I think that's the main difference between the mic array on that. So
could well be.
It's a significant uptick in microphones, which obviously makes for a better audio capturing experience. But I mean, that's pretty good, for $1,000 computer. That's a pretty good investment there. And it's
the
also
ridiculous part is if you have a Pro Display XDR, you can plug this baby in and drive it. You can be sitting there with your Pro Display XDR and your MacBook Air, and I don't know what you're going to color grade, but you could color grade it.
I finally have a reason to get the Pro Display XDR. It's what I've always wanted.
Now, if I want to use my wired earbuds, Renee.
Yes.
What happens here?
Plug them right in there. Whoops.
Wait, can't see.
There.
Okay, 3.5 millimeter.
Headphone or mic jack. Yep.
Okay.
Any and an outie.
Yep. It hasn't been replaced with a lightning port or USB-C headphone jack or something like that.
But just talking about in 2020, you still can't plug your iPhone headphones into your Mac or vice versa.
Yeah. You're getting me confused now.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
And then colors, I guess, is the last question. We're looking at they're calling it gold, but it's rose gold, right?
Yeah, I think they were going to call it blush gold, and then they came to their senses, but it's like a coppery, rosy gold.
Yeah, and they used to have just a straight up gold colored MacBook, and that one is just completely gone now. So anybody with an actual gold colored MacBook, they got a special one.
Does it match the gold watch, Renee? I know this is really only one person will care. Like the blush gold watch. Like
we'll have to try it against your watch.
We'll test it out because that would be.
There
awesome.
Are nations of millions waiting to find out, Georgia.
I know there's one. It's me, but I just want to know.
Georgia, I just thought of something. You're not going to be able to steal this one away from Renee because you can't go visit him for at least a couple more weeks. So
no, I know. I had a plan too. Oh well.
Thieving, straight up thieving.
Joe, are you gonna get this one? Are you gonna get the MacBook Air?
No, I think I'm gonna skip this one. I'm pretty happy. I'm more of a desktop person anyway, and I have a 2018 Mac Mini. And for my mobile Mac needs, my 2013 MacBook Pro is still holding up rather well.
2013. Wow.
Are you
practically ancient?
Pro, Joe?
No. If anything, it's the 16-inch Pro.
Okay. You want to tell us what amazing update the Mac Mini got this week?
More storage. It got more storage.
More storage.
It didn't get 10th generation processors?
No.
Nope.
I'm so salty.
Yeah.
Just more storage. But you know what? People wanted more storage. Apple gave you more storage. And they didn't increase the price, right? It's the same price with more storage.
Yeah,
so
still
that's
starts
pretty
at
nice.
$799.
Yeah. Viper, what about you? Are you going to get the MacBook Air?
No, I think my needs a little bit more past the MacBook Air at this point. I am eyeing a 16-inch MacBook Pro at some point in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, I know. I'm waiting for the 13-inch MacBook Pro. That an updated one because that's my size. I prefer it. I like that size, and I want the new keyboard. And I would even be happier if it was a 14-inch MacBook Pro stuck inside a 13-inch body with a bigger bezel-less screen. That's my hope. I actually really like this MacBook Air. I'm not going to get it. I don't have that level of FOMO, but I don't actually need the power that my MacBook Pro has. I just like that I have it. I work on my computer constantly, so I like having something that's the most advanced just in case. But if there was some sort of financial reason that I had to, like consider my budget when it came to buying a new computer, the MacBook Air, I think, would be absolutely fantastic. In fact, I would recommend that to anybody that is looking for a new computer, unless they're doing a lot of graphics heavy things or editing or movie making, stuff like that. I would recommend the MacBook Air to anybody. I think it's the best laptop they have for most people, for sure. So it's a good one. And the fact that they've finally, brought back the scissor keyboard that has been so contentious, it's really great. So before we move on to the next big thing there is more. I do want to take a moment to tell you about our sponsor, who is coming up right now. You like how I do that? All right. Thank you so much to LinkedIn Learning Enterprise for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. There's a lot of HR people out there looking for new employees, adding staff to their businesses and making things work. And it's really difficult to figure out if you have the right employees. And it's also difficult to figure out how to train those employees. So LinkedIn has added something special to their services, which is called their learning and development. It's LinkedIn Learning. It's a really great feature, a really great service for businesses, because they can do stuff like it teaches skills to people so that they can use that business's particular skills. There's just hundreds of different videos that you can watch and classes that you can learn from. So your employees that you've just hired, they can learn all of the stuff that they need from your business, kind of catered to the type of businesses that you have, whether that's in, law or in entertainment or in education. There's a bunch of different learning programs that LinkedIn Learning can do for you. So you can visit linkedinlearning.com/iMore to sign up today for a demo. You don't have to be a business. There's all kinds of stuff out there. There's how to use Excel and HTML stuff. It's just a learning program. It works great for businesses, but it's great for everyone else too. Again, that's linkedinlearning.com/iMore. And thank you to LinkedIn for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. And let's get back into the other big announcement that happened on the same day. It's the Watchbands. It's this fancy, actually, I did like that color. I'm so glad that you're showing that off. Is that grapefruit? Is that what they're calling that?
No, it's not a weird name like tardigrade or something. I don't remember exactly. But it's not a name that I would never have expected nor will remember unless
I do like the spring colors this year. They're pretty fun.
And they have a really, really nice looking, sorry, I have to say this without French people getting angry at me, Hermes, and for the black, Hermes. People get so angry at me if I say Hermes. Can't even do it. But
I think you can split the difference though and just say Hermes. That's good enough, right?
Hermes. Voyons donc.
Are you getting that one, Renee?
No, I'm on a more. I've decided I'm on a moratorium for Watchbands until the economy turns around.
I get that.
But then I don't have as many to steal.
That's true. That's true. And I guess I have to do my part to help the economy going by buying more Watchbands. Damn it, you turned me around.
Very important.
It seemed like a really easy thing to do.
In addition, we're putting it off so much, but in addition to those wonderful Watchbands and cases for the iPhone and new cases for the iPad Pro, Apple released a new iPad Pro. Dum dum dum.
What? No. What? No. What? No.
Most of what you think is there is the same. It's going to be the same size, an 11-inch and a 12.9 inch. It's going to have most of the same guts. There's a little bit of spec bumps and things like that. But one of the most important things that they've added to this year's iPad Pro is a new camera system. Joe, tell us all the details.
All right. So this camera system is kind of like, I kind of think of it as an iPhone 11 Plus kind of camera system. It's 2 cameras. You've got the standard sort of Apple wide lens, which is a 12 megapixel sensor. And then you have an ultra wide, which is a 10 megapixel sensor. But kind of other than the fact that it now has 2 cameras on the back, the sort of big news about this module is the Lidar sensor, just light detection and ranging, which...
So are you talking about a lion and a tiger?
Or does it tell you if you're lying?
If only it told you those things. No.
What's LiDAR?
So LiDAR is, like I said, light detection and ranging, and it's sort of an advanced sensor system that, so NASA's using a much more advanced version of LiDAR on its next Mars mission. And it uses time of flight sensors to tell you just how far away something is and measure objects. And for the iPad, this works up to 5 meters away, and Apple is really pushing it as an AR kind of aid, as a way to really push forward on AR stuff, to more accurately measure how big an augmented reality object should be, and just make more realistic artificial environments.
Renee, what is time of flight? Does it have anything to do with the airspeed of an unladen swallow?
No, so time of flight isn't new. The problem is that a lot of people just don't see the value of it, or they don't get shown.
Thank you, Georgia.
Reason for it. And sorry. So it just means that it shoots a laser out and then checks how long it takes for the laser to come back, and it uses that to tell you how far away the object is. And so what Apple's doing is it's sending out the LiDAR signal constantly, and developers can pull in that information anytime they want. So on some cameras, for example, they use that to make portrait mode better. What Apple's doing is they're using it for now. We have suspicions about what they'll be using it for in the future, but for now they're using it to make ARKit instant. So you don't have to take your phone or your tablet and move it around the room anymore to lock on. It's just like, boom, your chair's there. Boom, your painting is there. Boom, those aliens trying to kill you. There. And it's also can create a mesh of the entire room. So basically you can map the room. So if you're doing like 3D modeling or anything, you can put all that stuff in there. And otherwise, so basically it's making like ARKit just so much better, faster, stronger, harder, whatever else that the song goes. Sorry.
I think what we're really saying here is that this iPad has freaking laser beams attached to its head.
Viper, do we need AR right now? Do we need this? Do we need LiDAR on our iPads right now today?
I don't know if we need it right now. I mean, the iPad's been doing pretty well without it up until this point. I find it interesting when we had these Apple keynotes where there were actual live keynotes in person. It was interesting how people used to come on stage, and bust out the iPads and bust out their AR games and things like that. It always looked kind of crazy when there was like nothing on this blank table. But yeah, these dudes will be interacting with the iPad and its AR, these AR games and things like that. So the iPad has been doing okay, but obviously we are moving to a more AR-focused reality here in the next 5 to 10 years. So I guess Apple is now positioning this LiDAR technology as being a part of that future that they see, especially considering the fact that we all know that it's been rumored that Apple is working on AR glasses. So maybe this technology is a test run to see how they can implement it into AR glasses in the future. I don't know, but it's interesting nonetheless.
So does that mean that we would strap iPads to our faces? How would that work?
Absolutely.
I don't think it would be like that, but your regular sunglasses or eyeglasses that you wear now, if Apple is able to equip those with AR technology or even an operating system, then things could get very interesting in the future.
Yeah. I have to point out that Apple was able to put LiDAR on an iPad Pro, but can't figure out how to put a 1080p camera inside of a MacBook Air. Come on.
That was sick burn.
Roast them.
Renee, what else does the iPad Pro have going for it that's new and different?
Previously, only the 1 terabyte model had 6 gigabytes of RAM. Now all the models have 6 gigabytes of RAM. They have Wi-Fi 6, like the iPhone 11. It also has the U1 chip, which is Apple's spatial awareness chip. So for now, it'll be useful in terms of like I can point my phone at Lori's iPad and it'll pick that one to AirDrop to. But in the very near future, that means that it's super compatible with Apple's AirTags whenever those ship, presumably along with the iPhone 9 SE2 Mark 8, whatever they decide to call that thing. And yeah, I think those are the only major differences right now. And it's compatible. It's got a fancy new folio case and Magic Keyboard accessory that's optionally with it.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the Magic Keyboard, which to me, it's the biggest deal for the new iPad Pro, partly because I can use it with my older iPad Pro. So Viper, I saw you getting a little bit excited about this. Tell me a little bit more about the Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro.
Ooh, it's kind of funny because I still have no idea why they call it a Magic Keyboard, but I digress. So the Magic Keyboard is pretty cool. The way Apple has it set up is it has some type of floating design. So when you put your iPad on the back of it, it kind of floats over the keyboard, which is kind of cool because even though the keyboard has a built-in trackpad, a lot of times, you have to swipe up and things like that with the iPad. So not having it right there on the same plane as the keyboard makes it easier to swipe. So that is a definite nice little engineering move by Apple. Besides the fact that finally we have an Apple iPad keyboard with a backlit set of keys. Oh my goodness. I have been waiting for this forever and ever, and it's finally a reality. Now, as far as the built-in trackpad goes, I don't know how much use I'll get out of that. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to be able to use their iPad in more of a computer type way with that built-in mouse and cursor support. So I'm pretty sure they'll be excited to put that to use. And I mean, for the money that they're charging for this thing, it better be there. But I think I'm more excited about the backlit keys. Oh yeah.
Joe, yeah. I know that you've had a chance. So we know that like a better cursor experience is coming in iOS 13.4. Trackpad support, full trackpad support is coming in iOS 13.4. And Joe, you've been using the beta of that. The developer beta now has that. And you've been using it with your own trackpad? Are you using it with the Apple trackpad?
So I use a Magic Trackpad at my Mac Mini, but I also use the same Magic Trackpad now with my iPad.
Yeah.
And I've been playing around with this since Wednesday when the beta came out, and it's amazing. The trackpad support coming in iPadOS 13.4, and I want to stress that it's iPadOS 13.4. This support is not in iOS for iPhone. Is they've for a really towards the end of cycle release of software, it's incredibly impressive. I'd expect this sort of thing from iOS or iPadOS 14, but the work that they put in to make this a first-class experience on the iPad now just is kind of blowing my mind. It's if you've used a Mac, there's not a lot of learning to do. I think there are certain aspects like the snapping of the cursor to certain buttons on the interface and some of the gestures that you do that aren't analogous to the Mac that you will have to learn. But I think this is quietly maybe even the biggest news of the week is full trackpad support. And I think one of the things that is great about the Magic Keyboard is it's going to bring this sort of thing to more people, because I don't know how many people are currently aware of this software update, but they are aware of that Magic Keyboard for iPad, and it's just it's going to bring this to so many more people.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal too. I've mentioned this multiple times, but I use the Bridge Pro Plus keyboard with my iPad Pro, and I've had it on there for a very long time, for a couple months now. And even in the current state of the cursor experience, which is built, it's baked into accessibility right now. So it's not as robust, and it definitely doesn't have good trackpad features. It's more of a mouse cursor type feature. Even with the limited scope that it has now, I find it to be absolutely wonderful to have that trackpad underneath the keyboard like that. And having Apple update the cursor experience so that it has gesture support, for example, that's a really big deal. And for those of us who use the trackpad and even the Magic Mouse, gestures, pinching and spreading your fingers and swiping with 2 fingers, swiping with 3 fingers, that's all very very comfortable and intuitive on the Magic trackpad. So being able to bring that experience to the iPad, I think really does push what Apple's been trying to say all along, is that this can be your replacement for a computer, which I think it has been for a lot of people for a very long time. Not everybody is a bunch of tech people who needs an advanced computer. I know dozens of people who don't own a computer anymore because their iPad is good enough. And this kind of pushes that to that next level of that comfort zone that we feel about using a mouse or a cursor while we're using a touchscreen device, especially with the keyboard. Renee, you've said this a bunch of times, that you gave me a keyboard, now give me a reason to not have to touch the screen, because if I'm typing, I don't want to reach up and touch the screen. So Apple's finally bringing that to the table here.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, it's a touch-first device and it's a tablet, and people were like, "Oh, Microsoft was right." And like, stop, just stop. You're gonna hurt yourself, because we are a bunch of nerds, and we look at things through nerds-colored glasses. And for us, the iPad was probably as frustrating as people who were used to command line computers when GUIs came out. Like, what, I got to use this mouse and click on things? Screw that. Give me a terminal. And we're like, what? I got to pinch around and do it? No, just give me a keyboard. And so Microsoft did, and they did it because they had an inability to provide a touchscreen tablet for years. So they basically tried to make the PC into one, and that's great, that's fine, but it's great for traditional computer users. And the iPad is great for so many more people. And if that weren't the case, then the Surface would be the best-selling tablet in the world, and not the iPad by like exponentially more. But what Apple did notice is that the nerds were still frustrated they couldn't use their tablet the way they could use a computer, and that they were willing to pay a lot of money for it, because there were some people buying, like the Google and the Microsoft version. So they came out with the iPad Pro sort of begrudgingly, and now they're adding more and more functionality. I liken it to the bigger phones. Apple's like, most people want small phones, and that was true until it wasn't. And Apple could just cede that market to Samsung making bigger phones, or they could make a bigger phone and take that money too. So I think they decided that nerds had a bunch of money and they wanted to take that money too. And now we have a keyboard for our iPad.
Yep.
It just adds options, right? If you have difficulty with movement or mobility, or it allows other options for you to be able to interact with it. And I think that that's really important. And, that you can then choose to interact with, the user-facing experience can be made to what you need. And I know a lot of people that can only kind of move their hand a little bit. And so a mouse is much easier than being able to touch an entire screen, though they would like to have the functionality of an iPad versus carrying around a laptop. So I think that this is going to help, and I think it's going to open up a lot of people to buying one.
Definitely. Joe, we have a question from our live audience. Herson Salinas asked if you have to enable assistive touch in order to use the cursor experience, and because you've done it, tell me how that goes. How do you get it to work?
So for the new trackpad experience, all you need to do is connect your pointing device. You don't need to go into settings. You just connect it. I've been using a USB-C to Lightning cable because it's wirelessly connected to my Mac, and I don't want to screw with that. But all you have to do is connect it. You can interact with. You can change additional settings in the assistive touch menu, but there's also a new trackpad menu in the general settings on your iPad as well.
What kind of things come with the general settings of the trackpad then?
So things like tap to click, where you can just tap the trackpad rather than click it and actuate. You can change the inertia of the cursor. and you can enable or disable a 2-finger. I don't know what they call it off the top of my head, but it's sort of the contextual click. So if you, so it takes the place of a long press. So if you 2-finger click on an app icon, you get that contextual menu that pops up for additional options or activating particular features of an app.
I would probably disable that because knowing me, I would accidentally trigger it all the time. So yeah, that sounds actually really easy. So it works with Bluetooth trackpads too, right? You don't have to connect. You personally just choose to.
That's how I choose to do it. Yes.
Yeah, and of course, let me put out there that though this is the Gold Master beta, it is still the beta. So everything that Joe is saying might completely disappear by the time iOS 13.4 actually comes out. This is all supposed to be coming, and I think we're expecting it next week. So
Tuesday.
Everybody with an iPad will get this experience. They'll get this updated trackpad experience. It's not just for the new iPad Pro. It's not just for Apple's Magic Keyboard with a trackpad. This is every iPad that can support iOS 13.4. iPad OS 13.4. So
yeah, what's really great. So Apple has introduced the Magic Trackpad, and the Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro, and it is expensive, but Logitech is actually making their own thing called, I think, the Combo Touch.
The Combo.
And that is for the 10.2-inch iPad as well, and they also have a version that fits the 10.5-inch iPad Air 3, and if you have the 10.5-inch second generation iPad Pro, it fits that too, and that comes with its own built-in trackpad.
Right, and so you don't even have to have an iPad Pro to get a good keyboard with a trackpad. There are lots of them out there, or not lots of them, but there's a handful of them out there that are going to have really great experience to go along with it. Renee, can you give us just a little bit more information about Lidar tech? What we'll do in the near future, we'll bring Russell Hawley on. He is AR and VR expert. He's been on our show before. He is fantastic with that. Our room is crowded today and we're practicing social distancing. So he's not in this on this show today, but we will bring him on and talk about it a little bit more in detail, hopefully next week. So Renee, what can you tell us about what you know about Lidar?
Yeah, so it's super simple in concept. They use it's used in a lot of autonomous vehicle testing, much to Elon Musk's chagrin because he hates the idea. But it's got a lot of practical uses. Especially for things like glasses, because it's not a camera. And a lot of Georgia previously, if you go back to the archives of the iMore show, she'll tell you that sticking a camera on your face is not a very good way to have social conversations with people, because it's like, oh, are you recording me? Are you not recording me? Is that an X-ray camera? It's not very relaxing. But Lidar is not a camera. It's just a laser, and it's very discrete, and it's not getting an actual image. Like, it doesn't. All it knows is that Georgia is an object in space. It doesn't know who she is or what she looks like or anything. It knows a 3D outline basically, and the desk and the table, and it makes a mesh of the room. So it's much more accurate, but also less privacy invasive. And that makes it a really ideal technology for Apple, for the way that they think about these things. And today it's on iPads, and in September it's going to be on the new iPhone. And after that, it's going to be on the glasses, so that as you look around, all of these things are related. So I'm going to just step back for a minute. It's one of the few things Tim Cook has talked about in advance, because it's not a product. It's like most of our devices have screens. Apple Watch has a screen. Televisions have screens. iPads have screens. MacBook Pros have screens. So no one's like, I refuse to discuss the future of screens. They're unreleased products. This is that. There's going to be a whole generation of products that don't use traditional screens, but have opportunistic displays that are in front of our eyes, and one day on our walls, and all that kind of stuff. And this is one of those things. So eventually it will be glasses, and instead of having to take out our watch or take out our phone or take out our TV, we'll just be able to watch things where we are. And not everyone's going to want to wear glasses all the time, so there'll be traditional screens, but it'll just be like a next generation of display. And Lidar is going to be what gives it all. So in order to put stuff in the world, you got to ingest the world first. That's computer vision. That's when you take in all this stuff and the computer tries to identify it. And that's what Lidar helps it do. It gives it the 3D spatial mapping that it needs to understand the environment, whether you're trying to pilot a car through it or just put like a fun game on the table in front of you. That was the world's worst explanation. God, I wish.
No, that sounds good. And I think one of the other things that Lidar is currently being used in, and a lot of new robot vacuums have Lidar. The one that I have, it's got a little bit of Lidar, and what it does is it sends out that little beam of light, and then determines how long it took for it to travel back to it, and it will try to avoid objects instead of politely bumping into them, which it also does that. If it recognizes a big enough object, it doesn't even try to bump up against it. It just knows and goes around it because it's recognized that the object is there and it will avoid it. So is this kind of like your, Lori, like your phone's eyeballs, like it uses a laser to be able to see that something's there, and then we can eventually use, like, it doesn't know what the object is, but it knows that there is an object there, and then we can use this for like augmented reality, gaming, hopefully one day an Apple car that drives itself. Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of what it is.
That all seems like it's all going in the right direction. Yeah. I definitely think in terms of our iPads and our iPhones, the purpose of that from the consumer perspective is going to be so that we can map out rooms and play games or design a new living room or something like that. Laying down schematics for construction, all that kind of stuff can all happen using augmented reality. I think right now, I don't think that the LiDAR scanner is very consumer important. We just don't use it on our end as much as it's being developed on the development, and that all needs to happen. It's still in its infancy phases, and until the developer community of AR has a great handle on how they're going to present it to us, we're still kind of just playing with augmented reality and virtual reality. We're actually better at virtual reality than augmented. We're still playing with the augmented reality world, but the LiDAR scanner is exactly what we as consumers are going to need and want and enjoy having once the two finally mesh. Like, it'll happen. It's going to happen. Everybody is doing the work. It's just a matter of finally hitting that stride where development and consumer purpose all kind of line up, and it'll probably be really soon. And the LiDAR on the iPad Pro is a perfect example of evidence that it's coming. I think, just like Renee's saying, if we do see it on the iPhone 12, if that's what we're going to call it, or even just a year later, that's just definitive evidence that the consumer side of AR is coming very, very soon. And Apple's just making sure that they're on board ahead of time so that once it finally does click for us as consumers and we're using it all the time, Apple has already given us the products we need to experience it at its fullest and most useful. So
yeah, I think actually Samsung came out with a similar feature I think a year or two ago with AR doodles. No cameras were able to pretty much use augmented reality to make a 3D map of an object in space and things like that. So this is not a new feature. It's new to Apple, but it's been out there and we shall see. But we got to talk about the actual elephant in the room, though. So we got these new iPad Pro updates this week, and the first thing when I found out about them, I was curious. Why are the new iPad Pros, the ones that are supposedly an update to the 2018 iPad Pros, why are these brand new iPad Pros in 2020 coming with an A12Z chip instead of an A13X, right? Because obviously the current iPad Pro that we have or whatever have A12X chips, I believe in them. Mm-hmm. And these have A12Z instead of A13X. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering this. And then we got a report from an analyst, I think yesterday or the day before, saying that these might not be the newest iPad Pros that we get this year. So we might.
So there's a couple reasons for it, and you can make these good reasons or bad reasons depending on what you want. And I'll just preface this by saying in 2012, Apple put out two new iPads. There was the iPad 3, and then there was the iPad 4. The iPad 3 was a rush to get Retina and LTE into the iPad. And unfortunately, the thermals were just hot garbage, especially for the GPU. It was worse to program on than an iPad 2 for a lot of developers. So Apple, and also it didn't have Lightning when Apple was about to switch the entire gamut of devices to Lightning. So very quickly, 6 months later, they replaced it with the iPad 4, which was super cool, faster, better, stronger, all those things all over again. This year, there's no 5G modems yet. Some people were hoping the iPad would get them, but Qualcomm is working as fast as they can to get them into the iPhone. Never mind the iPad. Everything falls behind the iPhone when it comes to 5G. Not that it matters, because 5G is as useful as 6G to most people in America right now. Unless you're nesting on top of a 5G tower, it doesn't really matter to you. But there was no way to get that in. And also, in order to keep it's a more expensive chip. The A14 was going to be the A13 and 10. It's a more expensive chip, and it has different thermals. What Apple decided to do, and what they've done with the iPad for a long time, is what they call slow and wide. And that means that instead of increasing the speed, they increased the capacity, the bandwidth, and they added an extra GPU. So it maintains roughly the same thermal envelope, but it can do more general compute. So you get the cost savings, you get the same architecture, you get the ability to, and there's almost nothing pegging an iPad Pro right now. There's very few apps that can make that thing hit its thermal limits. I'm sure there's a couple people going, well, but now you gave us that time of flight sensor, and I would totally peg it, you jerks. So there's probably a few people who were salty about it. But overall, I think this was mostly just about getting time of flight into an iPad early, so that by the time the iPhone launches, you'll have a bunch of more compelling applications, including that new AR camera app that Apple's apparently had for 2 years and still hasn't shipped, and I would really love to see come with the iPhone 12.
But Renee, there are rumors and reports out there that we are going to get a newer iPad Pro later this year with an A14X chip and 5G on board.
Yes, either late this year or early next year, depending on how hard it is to get the iPhone out. Mm-hmm. And then probably another one with mini LED displays. So my advice is buy when you need, not when you want. Just if you need it, buy it, and then be happy, because there'll always be something new.
That is true.
Yeah, I think this potentially could be not entirely unlike when the iPad 3 came out, which I think not even 6 months. I think it was 4 months later, the iPad 4 came out, and I was the one that bought early, and then they bumped it. The differences were, just like you're talking about, it was in the processor, not anything that I needed to worry about. But there was this part of me that was a little bit salty, as Renee would say, having just bought an iPad and then less than 6 months later, a brand new one came out. So that may or may not happen this year. Possibly.
The one thing I'll add is and it's the thing I like least about tech culture is the minute a new device comes out, it's should you upgrade from the last one? I'm no, human beings don't shop like that. Tech nerds, reviewers get them for free, so they don't care. Not for free, but they get the review unit. They have to give it back, but they get it. So they're comparing them, but humans, they buy every 2 or 3 years, and now every 3 or 5 years. So it's not. And they're well, why does Apple have to put them out every year? It's so that any year you do want to buy, you get the best possible product. If they only updated them every 3 years and you wanted to buy 2 years later, you're stuck with a 2-year-old product. And that's not good, because then it just ages out super fast. So you put out the new products every year, and people buy when they need to. And then literally everybody is happy, except for those cranky tech journalists who are well, it's an incremental update over last year's. Sorry, Viper makes me savage.
I think I'll be fine missing out on the first generation of 5G iPads.
Yes.
I think you will too. Definitely.
I think I'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will not be buying this upgrade to the iPad Pro, because to me, all of the upgrades that are in there, they're meant for people who make videos, people who actually video and photograph on their iPads, people like you, Renee, content creators, people who need a little bit extra on the photo editing, video editing, filming, all that kind of stuff. And I don't need that on my iPad Pro. So the one that I have from 2 years ago, it's still an excellent tablet. I would definitely say you don't have to upgrade. The upgrade is meant for people, very specifically people like Renee, people who are content creators who are always, processing film and editing and things like that. People who are kind of,
unless you're doing LiDAR stuff, you don't really need to. I mean, the cameras are nice. Yeah, I would have preferred the iPhone Pro cameras than the iPhone 11 cameras, to be honest with you, like for video work. But like for people who are seriously into LiDAR, and that's increasingly a lot of, because we just think about, oh, there's no applications. There's a lot of applications in enterprise and education. So for people into that, especially developers, it's great. Get all that stuff ready. So then we get our glasses, our world is cooked. It's good to go. There's no more dough in those cookies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have a graveyard of iPads. It's not. I don't use the iPad. I like my desktop or my laptop are really what I go to. So I don't need it. But my husband like exclusively uses his iPad with the keyboard. It's heavy. It's huge. I don't know why, but that's what he likes to work on. So
I think last time I was here we talked about this briefly. But Georgia, what MacBook are you currently using?
Oh God, I don't even know. It's the pink one.
Well, but what year is it? Which one is it?
I think it uses the butterfly, right?
Yeah.
I think if I'm remembering, hers is probably something like a 2017 MacBook Air.
It is. I think it might be. Let me take a look here.
It might be 2016, but
yeah, I think it might be the 16. Yeah, early 2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's Retina 12-inch. It's beautiful, but it's prettier than it is smart. It's like, but I use it. Like it's portable. It's easy. I don't do anything big on it. If I have to do anything big, I'm just going to use my main computer. But portable, pretty.
So are you going to upgrade to the new MacBook Air? Are you actually, even though you don't love the keyboard, are you just going to stick it out because you've got it works?
Stick it out until it really frustrates me and another key dies, right? Like if I can't use the little air mechanism to deal with the key, we'll see. But I have an unhappy relationship with my MacBook because of that.
Yeah. And you have for years. I can't believe that you're not already pre-ordering it.
4 years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We're not breaking up yet, but we'll see.
Well, your kids probably need a new computer, right? Pass it down to them. Get yourself a new one.
Oh, it's always the temptation, like especially with what we do, to be able to be upgraded. But it really, the keyboard does. I hate it. My husband's resurrected one of our old MacBooks, and it's just with the old keyboard. I'm like, ooh, it's so awesome, and I go back to using it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the feeling. It's like old shoes. You're like, oh yes, those are comfortable.
Well, you could have that again, Georgia. You could have that again.
I'm
like next week.
I'm increasingly thankful that I've missed this era of Apple laptops in my personal use.
Yeah, Joe, you're right. You're right.
So, Joe, you haven't bought a new laptop in over 4 years.
I haven't bought a new laptop in over 6 years.
Woo! Wow. Yeah, you
so
are.
I still have a scissor switch, and it was only like a year and a half ago that my E key started to act up a little bit.
Oh, and that's a really needed key.
Yeah. I don't. Well, I mean, I use it all the time, so that there you go. But I mean, I can still type an E. It's just not always.
Yeah.
So the time is coming.
All right. Well, we have come down to the end of the hour, and it's been absolutely amazing. Renee, show us one more time the new MacBook Air, which basically looks the same as the old MacBook Air, but it does have some important new features.
Old as time, song as old as rhyme, Beauty and the Beast.
Yep, it's been wonderful. And
is it lighter than the MacBook, if I may ask? I'm sorry, Lori, to interrupt.
It's a little bit bigger than the MacBook, 12-inch MacBook.
Okay.
It's the 12-inch MacBook. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier. Yeah. Anyway, so once again, we're down to the end of the hour for the iMore show. So we are saying goodbye now, and it's been wonderful to have everybody who is here with us watching the unboxing. Thank you, Renee, for doing that for us. Thanks for everyone who sat in and watched us. Thank you so much, Viper, for joining us this week. It was really great to have you. If people want to find you on the internet, where can they find you?
Ooh, oh man, people want to find me. They can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Those are usually my main 3 haunts.
Okay, and how do they find you? Like, what's your handle? How will they know it's you?
It's, yeah, right. Spell VYYYPER. So you can type that in
Got
anywhere,
it.
you'll find me.
Okay, VYYY. That's 3 Y's, PER. Type it into
Yep.
Google. You'll find him. Renee, if people want to find you on the interwebs, where can they find you?
I am at Renee Ritchie on all the things. Like, just if there is a Renee Ritchie and I manage to get there soon enough, that is me.
There's
If I didn't, I'll
probably
be like Renee Ritchie 875 or so. I don't know.
there's probably another Renee Ritchie out there in this world.
There's a
stole your
bunch.
TikTok,
I didn't
didn't
get to TikTok fast enough, so I couldn't
They
get
stole
it
your
on.
TikTok, didn't they?
I know.
I knew it.
So if I have to do like this stuff, it's going to be like Renee Ritchie 8752344.
Ah.
They stole your TikTok. Oh man.
Georgia, if people want to find you on the interwebs, the few times when you do show up there, how
Right.
can they find you?
You can check out anxiety-videos.com if you're dealing with any anxiety. I don't know why this time of the year. You can also, I'm sometimes on Twitter at Georgia_Dow, and you can email me at Georgia@westmounttherapy.com.
And anxiety-videos.com. Everybody take a moment right now and think about that. If you're feeling anxiety right now, there are things that you can do to help mitigate that, help make you feel better. Anxiety-videos.com is a really great place to go to help you just calm down right now. I know even me, my life is great. Everything is wonderful, but even I've been feeling a little bit just down lately. And, anxiety-videos.com is a really great place to go. So definitely check it out. And Georgia, thank you for all that you do for our mental health, for taking care of us and giving us some advice and making us feel better about ourselves. Joe Keller, if people want to find you out in the world, on the social medias, on the internet, where can they find you?
You did this deliberately. They can find me on Twitter at jkeller87. That's JKELLER 87. And otherwise, I'm not around. You can't find me.
How did you let 86 Joe Kellers get onto Twitter before you?
I was born in 1987, Renee.
I have a feeling that
Indeed.
that's a thing that people's parents used to tell their kids when they were getting a new email address of if you can't get your full name, put the year that you were born. I think did your parents tell you to do that?
I mean that's my that's not how I got my Twitter handle,
Okay.
but that was email advice given to me. Yes.
Yep.
As you
That
get
was-
older, you're going to resent it.
when people
Yeah.
start going, you were born in 1987, you're an old man.
Yeah. Well,
Mom, is
I feel-
Grandpa's handle from 2087 or 1987?
I already feel old, so emotionally I'll already be there.
Okay. You're like Derek. You're fine.
And if you want to find me on the social medias, there are no 87s after my name. You can find me at Appaholic on Twitter. That's APPAHOLIK. And I'm at Lori Gill at most of the other social things. And thank you again for all of our listeners, whether you show up and watch us live or if you're listening to us days later. We really appreciate you. We love that you're there. We do this for you. We check the numbers. We make sure that there's still a reason to do this. So you keep listening to us. We keep doing this show. Thank you so much. And thank you again to Jim Metzendorf for making us perfect and wonderful. You've got extra work to do this time, but I think you're going to have fun listening to us. At least I hope so. Everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Goodbye.